be good. And in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Real Investment Property Income Podcast. My name is Jeff Eady. Joining me today, as always, one of Canada's top mortgage brokers, my good friend, the captain to my Tennille, Mr. Jonathan Tilger. Jonathan, how are you today, sir?
Oh, I am really excited today and really excited for the guests we have on. This is, topic near and dear to my heart. So ready to go.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one because these guys have like pretty extensive bios. I'm going to try and combine them. This is a first for us, JT. This is the first time we've had 2 people on at the same time. So, Lord help us all. Creating Lakefront Living Realty in 2009. The site quickly became a one-stop shop for consumers looking to learn full details on areas late. This is just too much. Okay, you know what? Why don't I let them do this? We have Christine Moser and we have Scott Ferguson. They have created and partnered up on Lakefront Living International LLC, which is a multi-state real estate brokerage focusing solely on lakefront property. One of the things I love about this is they have worked and been featured on HGTV and have worked with several people, from my understanding, within the film industry, which is especially near and dear to my heart since I used to work in that business. Please welcome Scott Ferguson and Chris Moser. Chris and Scott, how are you guys today?
Awesome.
We're doing great. Thanks for having us.
Sorry, I edited your bio there, but it's easier to let you guys tell us what you do because Jonathan and I are. Well, I don't see Jonathan get excited very often. I get excited, but when he's jumping up and down, you guys got something going on. So why don't you start, Scott, and you guys weave back and forth. I'm sure you guys do this on a regular basis.
Sure. Well, first of all, Jeff, you say my last name better than I do.
I've been practicing.
When people ask me how to pronounce my last name, I say, well, how do you say it? And they usually say it better than I do. So congratulations.
It's, you know what? It's one of those ones that sticks in my mind. So I've definitely worked on it.
That's pretty good. And there was no training to that at all. So good job. So we are Lakefront Living Realty. We started this in 2009 or so, just in the New England area. And Chris and I met somewhere around 2015, and we decided to franchise it. So we've have Lakefront Living Realties in 9 other states. So we're growing, and we're a franchise real estate company that focuses solely on lakefront property. It's our niche. It's what we love to do. It's how we live our lives, and it's been fantastic so far.
All right, go, Jonathan. Go. I can see you just chomping at the bit. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to actually start on the business side. I mean, the lakefront stuff, I know I could talk about all day long with you. I'm going to start on the business side. It really comes down to you really, and just forgive my Canadian pronunciation here, but I've always called it niche versus niche. But so if I say niche,
I like that better too.
Yeah, but with that, and this is one of the keys because you meet so many people, especially in real estate. I mean, I'm in mortgages, but I meet so many people in real estate and they say, what do you do? Well, I do real estate. I focus in, I specialize in residential, commercial, and they just list a laundry list going, so you don't specialize. Whereas you guys have truly focused on one particular, I'll call it subset of the market. And yet, and people always sit there and go, well, I don't want to miss out. So I just want to say I do everything, as opposed to focusing on, no, you know what? I mean, if you look lakefront, if you look at the entire real estate gamut, is I'm assuming probably like less than 10%, if not less than the entire market. And yet you guys are specialized in this and doing incredibly well and dominating this particular niche in the market. Tell me about that side.
Yeah, so you hit on so many points there. There's so
see, he's excited.
Yeah, I know this is just fun to even talk about. Well, let me back up for a second, because I'll tell you where you're at when looking for lake homes with what you were saying. Years ago, when I bought my first lake house, there was nowhere for me to go to find. I just wanted to look for a lake house. I wanted to be within 2 hours of my home. I didn't know anything about the lakes. I didn't know what, I just wanted to see lake homes. And when I would go out and do searches, it would be every single home, and there wasn't a search criteria for lakefront. And it was just hard to find anything. And then to find out about the lakes, are they nice lakes? And then to find someone that knew the lakes. I wanted to look at different lakes within 2 hours. So that was a real frustration in my initial search. Well, then when we finally did find it, quite honestly, I was diversified all over. I'm from Ohio, Columbus area. I was diversified and just doing normal residential all around the Columbus area and going to our lake house on the weekends and having to drive back to Columbus for showings. I'm like, the heck with this. But then really, I started bringing friends and people to our lake. I'm hanging out on the boat dock, taking people out on the boat, doing showings in flip-flops, t-shirts, drinking wine and beer, selling lake homes. And the price point versus what I was doing back in Columbus was night and day. I'm just like, wait, this is something here. I knew the pain I had in trying to find lake homes. And then it was really hard for me at first to get my mind off of that. I got to be everywhere and do everything at once. But once I started just focusing on strictly, I just decided to call myself Central Ohio's Lakefront Specialist. That took off. It was unflippin' believable, the amount of business I got. So I knew I had something there, and I just took people around to the different lakes and started selling it that way. But I didn't have the website or anything. And I was with a big company and I wanted to expand because I saw how big it was for just Columbus. I'm like, well, there's lakes all over Ohio. And I wanted to expand, but I couldn't with the company I was with because of the territories. So that's when I started searching, and that's how I found Scott. So that's kind of a synopsis of my story.
That really kind of reminds me of hearing Barbara Corcoran's story, where she became the celebrity. Sorry, yeah, she's amazing. Where she became the celebrity realtor, and all of a sudden her business took off. And it was because she wrote a report about what a celebrity would look for. She didn't even have a celebrity client yet. So as soon as you got the moniker, that became who you were. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Act as if.
Yeah. And how about yourself, Scott? How did you kind of find that niche that you guys are working in now? Like, I know you grew up in that area, but how did you decide this is what I want to make my life look like?
Well, I'm pretty fortunate. So I grew up here on a lake here in Mansfield, Massachusetts, and I was born and raised here. In fact, I still live on that lake, and my parents still live 3 doors down. So
nice.
I'm pretty fortunate here. So that was in my blood from early on in day one. And I think anybody you ask that has lived on a lake before, they'll tell you that they have just emotional connection to that way of living. So yeah, Jonathan, you probably can relate to that just from what I've heard earlier, but it just gets in your blood, and then it's just something. So when I first got into real estate, I said, let's just try this niche thing and see what happens. And it's a little scary. Any niche is scary because what you're saying is, here's 100% of the pie. I'm going to throw away 99% of that and just focus on this 1%, right? So it's a little scary to jump into it that way. But at the same time, everybody else is trying to be all things to all people. And we just said, that's not what we want to do. We want to be complete and utter experts in this one little area and, be the big fish in the smaller pond. And so far, that is what has made the difference, I think, for our business going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every state has lakes. So when we got together, we're like, we need to take, it doesn't exist. Let's take it nationwide.
It's okay. So I'm going to be completely honest. It was kind of weird the way that I was introduced to you guys. Typically, guests reach out to us through a service that we had come approach us, and your PR guy sent us the note, and I was like, I don't know who these guys are. And as soon as I started reading, I'm like, love them.
That makes you feel so good.
Well, you know what? I'm a giant marketing nerd, and Jonathan and I have been in this business a long time, and it's really nice to see people that excel within a very narrow, like you guys not only know who you are, you guys are creating what you want your life to be like. And that's kind of the sense that I'm getting from what you said, Chris, about like, hey, Columbus is beautiful. I love Columbus. I've had great times in Columbus, but who wants to drive to the city on the weekends? It's opposite to what you're trying to achieve for your life. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about how you guys met, what that first hey, let's partner up moment was like?
So it was funny because I started looking around I'm like, there has to be a company out there that solely does this. And I found Scott in New England and one other company in Alabama, and they really didn't sell franchises. It wasn't, so it really didn't exist. And I just called Scott and I'm like, hey, are you a franchise? Are you selling these things? He's like, no, I'm just, I've just expanded into a couple other states because it's gotten so big. I'm like, well, that's what's happening with me in Ohio. And we just said we had the exact same vision. He had already moved on to other states. I had taken all over Ohio. And we're like, I think we have something here because it doesn't exist. So we decided to meet at Lake Lure in North Carolina and see if we actually liked each other. And
We're still trying to figure that out.
I was going to say, rather than meet in the middle, go in a completely different direction.
Well, it was so funny too, because when we first met, I have a really strong faith. I'm just like, well, the Lord had shared this with me, and I believe the Lord is leading me this way. So I think he thought I was some religious fanatic. So when we meet the first night, he ordered just a Diet Coke or whatever. And Bruce and I are like, oh my gosh, Bruce is a bourbon man and I'm wine all the way. And I'm like, and I cuss every now and then too, and he's like, do I order? I'm like, I said to Bruce that night, I'm like, I don't know, man. Is he gonna not be able to hang out with us? Because we love to have fun and party and whatever. But the next day we rented a boat, went out on the lake, everyone let loose, and it was a great day. We had so much fun. We're like, okay, we're hitting it off. Let's see if in 5 years this really takes off, if we have something here or not. And we're going on what, 7 years now, I think.
Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah.
Jonathan, does this sound like a couple of people we know?
It comes down to when everything compare all things being equal, you're going to do business with people you like. So it's glad to hear that you guys hit it off. Obviously, glad to hear the business is doing well. Okay, so
and Jonathan has to let me know when his son's in the car and he's on speakerphone, because I might guess once in a while too.
Yes.
Yeah, they grow up fast that way.
I'm curious about some of your systems, because from what I have sort of heard about you guys talking about, you'll have things, obviously. I think one of your sayings is that you're not just buying the property, you're buying the lake as well.
Right.
And being on, my family's had a cottage on a small lake for many years. Grown up there, so I'm very familiar with the lake lifestyle. And I know one of the things you guys, it's a lake called Farlane Lake up in Ontario.
Okay.
And I know one of the things, and this is something that our lake has experienced, which is an invasive weed. And it's some of those things you want to know these things. How do you find this information? Because I know you've got a lot of different things as far as activities on the lake. Obviously, I'm assuming things like types of fish they've got for people who like fishing, different sports going on. How do you get all that information on these lakes?
Well, it took a while. I think there's 2,700 lakes or so that we deal with right now. And some states are better than others. My state of Massachusetts was horrible. So the lake information really took a lot of digging to get that. And there was probably 700 or 800 lakes we had to find information for. But, fortunately, as we added states, we added as much information as we could. And like you said, each one has a unique perspective. So some have lake associations and some don't. And if they do, we put links. If there's Facebook pages, we have links. If there's aquatic weeds that are invasive, we try to document all that. Almost all those lakes will have reports that they have for those weeds. So we'll put those reports up there. We just want to have any buyer that comes to our site know everything there is to know about that lake and make informed decisions. And that's why, as opposed to any other real estate, they really are buying the lake first and the home second. You can always change the house, but you can't change the lake. So, all those details become really important.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you move to a city and you don't know what suburb you want to move to. That's the way with lakes, you got to go and figure them all out. And I think too, like in Ohio, not all the lakes even had a website. I literally had to drive to every single lake and figure out and understand there's usually an HOA managing them, or within a watershed, or the city or somebody's managing them, to take you around and explain, okay, what are the species, and not just the weeds, but there's also dams. We had a lake in Ohio where the lake was dry for 2 years because they had to do dam repairs. So you want to find out all that kind of information, make sure, how is the dam? And there was another lake in Ohio that it got an invasive species of a fish, killed all the fish that did everything. The whole lake became a mess because it brought in an invasive species of fish. Did I say that right? Is that invasive species? What's that word? I don't
Invasive.
know.
Yeah, you said it right.
Yeah.
And invasive. But anyway, so
They're bad either way.
they're
Yes,
bad.
exactly.
Bad
The
fish.
the stuff you don't want.
That fish ruined a lake. And, but it brought property values down for that year, and which was great because I'm like, buy now, with all my clients. But anyways, I keep rambling. I go off on tangents. You'll have to
No,
just
this is
put
good.
me back in.
No, I want you guys to guide us on you. This is fantastic. Okay, so I said I live like right next to a river. I'm about 6 miles up the Grand River from Lake Erie. I'm on the north side of Lake Erie. So I grew up with a cottage on the lake. It's about 6 miles away. That was our vacation home on the weekends, and the whole family had it. It is a different lifestyle that you're buying into when you're buying that. Like I literally right now, I just found my model for my lakefront house that I sketched out like 12 years ago on a call with Robert Allen. I'm sorry?
Your dream board.
Yeah. And I just found it. Like, I'm like, I still don't have this. This isn't working yet. What is it that draws people to that? What do you find? Is there a common thread to the people that want to live on a lake?
Yeah, I think we hear stories all the time from thousands of people that we deal with every day, all these buyers. And I think it's something I touched on earlier, and something that Jonathan's feeling too, is that I think a lot of them have those memories, like their grandfather had some little camp on a lake when they were kids, and they went there every weekend or once 2 weeks out of the summer. And those memories, just for whatever reason, for lakefront lifestyle, those memories just stick with people. And they, a lot of times we see when life gets a little crazier, they try to, right, your kind of mind goes back to simpler and easier times in your life. So you think about, what was I doing then? And I think a lot of people were chilling on the lake. And so we get tons of inquiries like that of just people say, I used to live on this particular lake and I'd love to get a house there and go back there. So we hear those things all the time.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
So, and to piggyback on that, I hear the same thing, but it's a lot of people, it's usually in Ohio, it's usually their second home or someone retiring, and they have had the house in Florida or somewhere, and they can just never get there, or their kids are getting into sports and they can't get there like they used to. They want someplace they could just go to on the weekends, come back for a practice, and then get back up there. But then it's so cool, and it happened with us. Once that fabric gets in your blood, you just keep it, and it gets passed on to the kids. So.
Okay, so there's a couple of interesting things there. One, I want to ask about like the demographic that you typically deal with, because I would imagine there's a pretty specific demographic there, but there's also drivability. What you see is like the typical commute time between the city and the cottage, because I know living in Toronto, which now that I've moved out, your cottage drive time can be anywhere from, well, it should be 2 hours, but let's say it's 4 to 6 half the time, as opposed to where I'm 10 minutes away from the lake. How do you guys find that defines your area of search?
Yeah, I think in terms of demographic, each market's probably a little different. I'm in an area where most of the buyers are looking for full-time homes and not second homes. And in fact, the last 5 or 8 years, it's really been an empty nester kind of demographic. So their kids are grown, they're out of the house, and they've always wanted a lake house. And now that they're empty nesters, they're kind of looking for that thing now. So they say they want to downsize until you show them a smaller house, and then they don't want to downsize anymore. they still need room for all their stuff and garage space and all that. But that's kind of our demographic. And I think in terms of people that we've dealt with who do want a second home, kind of that 2-hour limit seems to work. Anything over that, and it's hard to do for a weekend, right? If you've got a 4-hour commute one way, you're not going to go there just for a Friday night if it's a Saturday. So I think that 2 hours means you can run there anytime you want and not feel like you've just traveled for 8 hours or something.
And Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry. But also, you know, what's really wild since COVID hit, I mean, everyone is coming to the lake. Everybody's like, I want to live there full time now. If I'm gonna have to work out of the house, I'm, you know, the work where I want to be happy at. So it's really changed, and it's so different by every state. Like Lake of the Ozarks is one of our lakes, and it's nowhere near an airport. It's a 2.5 hour drive, no matter which way you go. It is truly like the show Ozarks, middle of the nowhere. And so it's more of a destination, but our Tennessee lake is right by Knoxville. So it's more of a, people can fly in there and get a place, but that's like a full-time lake too. So it just really depends on the state. And it used to be entrepreneurs, small business owners, upper level management were my clients, but now it's just people wanting to work at home full time. A lot of IT people now.
So I guess part of your, the research you will have available is what's the internet service like there? Because obviously, what's the internet and what's the cell phone service? That's the criteria for a lot of people. Want to work from home. Can I work from there?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, the pandemic has been interesting for us because now I forget what the stat is. It's like 56% of the country is working from home. So they say, well, if I'm going to work from home, why wouldn't I work from some place that I really enjoy being and I can live, work, and play at the same place?
Mm-hmm.
So our business has really taken off the last 2 years. And by the way, when the government said you got to stay at home and isolate, we were like, all us lake people were like, oh, yes.
Yeah, right? For real.
I love pandemics.
Limit the number of visitors coming to the lake this year. It'll be quieter.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, I mean, boat sales took off.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Airbnb stuff all sold out. So it's actually hard to find any place on the water. It's a rare commodity. So many people want it.
Yeah, I know in this area, lakefront property went up. It's been going up about 30 to 40% a year the last few years for those exact reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, where I am, we're quite close to the US border, near Buffalo. And the first year of the pandemic, so the summer of 2020, all of the Americans, because the border was shut off, were selling their cottages. And it was, as soon you're driving down the road and it's just for sale, for sale, for sale, for sale. You drive down there now, there's not a single one for sale.
Yeah.
And I mean, the tiniest ones are going for 500 grand, which is like 40 bucks for you guys. But so
Yeah.
let's go back to the Lake of the Ozarks thing, because I want to go into my niche before you get to talk about your stuff, Jonathan. The film business. Tell me how you got involved with the film business.
Well, one of the things that happens is, at least the way it started was we were the only ones with information on lakes. So when a movie company was scouting for a location and they wanted a lakefront location, they just started typing in, you know, lakefront in Massachusetts or whatever it was. And so our site was coming up because it was the only one who described some of these lakes. So that's what started kind of the movie thing and site locations for movies. And then Chris can talk a little bit about HGTV.
Yeah, so they contacted us and I went ahead and filmed a lakefront bargain hunt renovation with them, hit it off with the film crew, and I just became their go-to, knowing that we had agents at all these other lakes and in other states. And in fact, we even filmed a pilot for our own TV show, and the network didn't pick it up because of budgets, is what they said. But we were so close; it was going to be so exciting. But anyway, so now it's kind of like between the relationship with them, and they know we're the go-to when everybody wants to film everything on water. I mean, when you look at car commercials, anything, you always see water in it. And so it's, you know, they'll call me up. They called me up this past summer and that for a movie location up at Put in Bay in Ohio, and wanting a little cottage on an island. And I'm like, I got your listing for you. So it just works out that way. So
speaking as a locations guy, that was my department. I would love having you guys up in Canada.
That was so much fun. That was a trip.
This is actually the last movie I worked on, called Man from Toronto. It's coming out this summer. Kevin Hart and Woody Harrelson in it. So
wow, that's a good cast.
Oh yeah, it's quite the big budget blockbuster. It'll be out in August, I believe. Not to plug the movie because I don't make any royalties or anything like that. I got paid for that long ago. But it's really interesting for me to be in real estate and having a background in the film business that you guys are doing both. It's that was honestly like that was the thing that made me say, yeah, I want to talk to these guys immediately. Now,
You know, what's really funny, my sister's a writer in Hollywood, and she's written on a lot of shows and stuff, but when was so busy with the whole HGTV thing, I forgot to even, I wasn't bragging on it, but I finally was like, oh yeah, this is airing. We need to see it. She knew I'd been filming. So she's like, wait a minute. She's out in California. She's like, I can't believe you're on TV. Why isn't this been told to be? And how are you getting on TV before I am? And it was
that is fantastic. One of the other things I really picked up on, and Jonathan, if you've got a question before me, feel free to jump in. One of the things I picked up on watching one of the videos with you guys was that you don't allow competition within the brokerage in a state. You guys want to talk about that model a little bit?
Yeah, well, Chris and I had both worked for larger franchise companies in the past, and we basically said if we're going to do this, we're going to do it kind of the opposite of what everybody else does. And we kind of took away all the things that we didn't like about those other franchises in the past. So one of those is territory. So if you buy a Remax or Century 21 or whatever it might be, they can have another office location within a quarter mile, half mile from your current location. That never made sense to me. It's like, why are you competing with your own company? You should be competing against at least other companies in your area. So we said, let's do the opposite. We want to find franchisees that are interested in taking over their entire state. So, this is a format where we'll have 50 to 100 of these things across the country someday, but that's about the max, because we really want these entrepreneurs to just let the systems in place that we have help them grow. And, just like I did here, I'm in Massachusetts, but I grew to 4 New England states, and I can do that all from my home office, and our systems allow them to do that. So that expansion was important to us.
Go ahead, Jonathan. I know you want to ask it.
Well, what I really want to know about is, and there's a few parts to this, and it's about your screening criteria when it comes to, first of all, you mentioned you've got franchisees, so your screening criteria to a new franchisee coming on board, but also your screening criteria, number of agents or brokers you've got working with you right now, and what's the process you go to when you're choosing to basically hire someone, let them into your one of your brokerages or franchises to say, hey, this is somebody who's going to be a fit with us.
Mm-hmm. I do the initial meet and greet over the phone, and I have a list of questions, but the main thing I'm looking for, it's a criteria that Scott and I have developed, is they have to absolutely live the lake life. Passionate about it. It's their life. They love it like Scott and I do. And the franchisees that we've brought on, they're just spot on with that, living it, loving it. And so that's the number one criteria. And then their experience. And then they just have to have that drive to want to take what we've developed and implement all that, and that drive and that hunger to say, yeah, I'm taking this over and I'm so excited to move on. So that's some of the criteria that I work with. Scott, I'll let you add on to that.
Well, one thing we do too is, and this was, I think it came out of a book a long time ago, but they say you want to be able to pass the campfire test. So can you spend 3 or 4 hours sitting around a campfire with these people and just really enjoy their company and, want to hang out with them, don't want it to end? If you only last 5 minutes around a campfire and you're tired of them already, then maybe they're not the right fit. So that campfire test quiz is kind of really important. That's why Chris and I go visit everybody personally before they come on, because we really want to make sure it's a good fit for us.
Is that the franchise level or
franchise level?
That's a franchise. And what about when it comes to either a real estate agent or broker joining you?
Well, I think we always say, I think Chris nailed it, that, they have to have that passion first. I think, like any system that's franchised, we feel we can teach anybody our systems. If they're intelligent people, we can teach them that part. we can't infuse passion for lakefront property into them. They have to start with that. They can learn our systems after that.
So any chance you guys want to come to Canada?
Yeah, that's why we named it international. We'd love to come up.
And I do that.
I know you're going there, Jonathan.
Yeah, well, I just look. I mean, Ontario is full of lakes, and I mean, you've got sort of the more well-known areas like the Muskokas, and obviously there's down. I mean, all over to the south, you've got Lake Erie plus smaller lakes. To the north, you've got obviously the Georgian Bay area, the Muskokas, all those things. So yeah, I absolutely love this. Absolutely. Going, wish I was in real estate right now and not a mortgage person.
But we should talk.
Yes.
And that's the thing, like, and when we look for agents too, not just, for me, for agents for Ohio, or even because we're helping our franchisees find agents too. You want to find agents that are living it, because they're going to sell it. It's so easy to sell it when you love it. So.
Well, you mentioned about the family properties and the memories. It does run very deep, like, just catching fish and seeing kids on the water. It's stuff that you don't think about money when you think about that stuff. And that's a rare thing in this world, because everybody's trying to, get theirs. You don't think about that when you see a kid catch a fish for the first time.
No, it's a great point.
One of the things I'm really interested in, because I've already downloaded your book. And by the way, Jonathan, the aquatic plants, you must have downloaded it too, because that's page 8. The invasive species.
No, I heard them talking about it on another interview.
Okay.
Yes.
Is your systems? I'm very interested. I'm a marketing nerd. I see some echoes of things that I've learned. How did you guys learn your system? And what do you do that's different?
I came out of 17 years in the corporate world. So for me, and a documentation background. So for me, all these things, put them together, was kind of fell into place. And I hate complicated things. So everything we do is very simple. It's very laid out. It's very structured. So any systems that we have developed, they're easy to follow, easy to use. But it just came from being in the business for a long time. And I read a book way back early in my real estate career. It's called The E-Myth. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one. It's a really good book. And one thing it said was, you should build every business like there's going to be 10,000 more just like it. And that stuck with me. And so everything, when you have that mindset, and all of a sudden, everything you do, every procedure you put in place, you're saying, okay, how do I make this repeatable and teachable for anybody else that comes on? So you just start documenting things. So, our systems developed over time in a really easy way. So far they've been, the great part is we have franchisees that are willing to kind of work with us through these systems. Every time we go into a new market, it's always a little different. So you have to sway one way or the other. But they've all been great at helping us adapt and get better. I always see this as, you're never there. This is one of those businesses where it's an 80-20 rule, right? When you're at 80%, you just got to go with it, and you'll figure out the other 20% later on. So I think you're always in kind of this constant state of improvement and innovation. And I think that works for me. I mean, I like change. I like to keep getting better. And as the times change and the pandemic, we had to shift. That's kind of, to me, that's fun stuff, because it's just, you're not stagnant. You just keep growing and growing. If that makes sense.
To piggyback on what he just said too, Scott and I are so opposite. He truly has created all the systems. If you saw my desk right now or walked through my day in life, I am all over the flipping place. But my definition of hell is writing a blog. I just can't even, the idea, I don't like social media. I'd rather pay somebody to do it all. So it was great, because when Scott and I met, he had this all organized, and my biggest discipline was having to sit down and just, I was the guinea pig for us, quite frankly, with his systems. And it was amazing. I went from my work life was running me to now I'm running my work life, and I'm not working near the hours, and have quadrupled what I made. just by implementing all that. It's just so much simpler. I just never had that in me to develop it or the discipline to sit down and do it. And he's made everything easy. So anybody out there listening that thinks I could never do that, that's what I thought too. So.
Jeff, you said earlier that Jonathan is the yin to your yang.
Yeah.
Chris is the Paul McCartney to my John Lennon.
I think Jonathan might call me his Ringo, but it's my favorite line about the Beatles when they asked John Lennon if they thought Ringo was the best drummer in the world. He said, hell, he's not even the best drummer in the band. But I digress. So do you guys typically look for, like, do you work more on the buyer side or more on the seller side, or whatever comes your way? Like, it doesn't sound like you guys it sounds like you guys are pretty intentional about what you do. So where do you get?
But I always say there's two kinds of people in this world: those who live on lakes and those who want to live on lakes. So, and we work with them both. So yeah, we like the buyers and the sellers.
Okay.
We use our website. Gets 100,000 visitors per month. Those are mostly all buyers just coming in to try and find their dream lakefront home on lakefrontliving.com. But the sellers, that's the nice thing about specialization is when you narrow your focus, you expand your appeal, right? So, when we go to in front of sellers, we talk the same language as they do. We walk the walk. So, they want to work with somebody who specializes in exactly what they have to sell.
Sorry, I'm searching for, I just dropped my pen and lost it, but I really like what you just said. When you narrow your focus, you expand your appeal. That's huge.
Write that down.
I literally am. Jonathan and I are just in the process of building our newest website for our mortgage team. And this is a conversation we literally had, an hour and a half ago, Jonathan?
Pretty much. Yep.
Okay.
just yeah, it's focusing in on who you want to, and you guys have done that so well. I mean, I admire that of what you've done. Now you've really focused on the niche, and I'm gathering for sellers, as you say, like either people who live on lakes or people who want to live on lakes. People want to live on lakes want the information. Someone who lives on lakes wants someone who's going to come in and has all the information. They don't have to provide it to them.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And we'll market their property properly because they know that, hey, here's all the highlights, all the perks, not just here's the property, but here's everything else that comes with the property. Here's the lake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, remember, we're selling a lifestyle. So, it's very rare we walk into homes and talk about bedrooms and bathrooms and kitchens. Anybody can do that. But what we sell is the lifestyle. We talk about what can you do on this lake? What can't you do? And just like you said, watching your kid catch a fish for the first time, that's all the kind of things that we talk about. And that's really what we sell.
I almost got a little misty-eyed thinking about that. That's I take my little cousins out fishing every now and then, and my family's got a spot on the river. It hits you deep though. Like you don't really consider price. Like when I made my dream home, I don't care what it costs. I will get to the point where I can afford whatever it costs because I want that. That's a vision. And I want that ability to have those memories. Something I find very interesting. One of the reasons I've thought about this specific niche for a long time, because I don't know if you're familiar with Dean Jackson and Joe Polish. I Love Marketing.
No.
This is kind of the stuff that I started to see you echoing in your marketing. It's, old school Dan Kennedy, the long form sales letter, offering that 10 things you need to know type of loss leader to get the email addresses in. One of the things I found interesting, and I want to know if you kind of use this to your advantage, and it sounds like you were pretty strategic about this, but Dean Jackson talked about, even going just door to door along a lake when a realtor wants to focus on that lake, and, introducing himself and offering some sort of value add to find out who's buying, who's selling, what the neighborhood's like, those types of things. And as you're building that, you're building out a list to say, here's the things you want to look for on this lake if you were to buy a home, to go out and attract your buyers. But at the same time, you're building a database of the sellers. So now you can market to the sellers on the other side with the buyers list that you have. Is that part of the strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think,
The work.
sometimes we overcomplicate what we do, but it's not complicated. We're matchmakers. We're
Mhm.
we're a dating website. We're just matching buyers and sellers of lakefront property. They have that in common. So we try not to overcomplicate that. We just say, okay, what does each party need to know about each other? And try to, build as much education into that as we can on the site and go from there.
That's interesting. I just saw a meme that was talking about Zillow. And I don't even know if we have Zillow for Canada, but they were saying, when is Zillow going to realize that they're a content site? I'm not looking to buy a home. I just want to know what somebody paid for theirs and comment about it.
True.
So it's kind of interesting. How do you drive 100,000 visits a month on your website?
Well, it's just happened over time. It certainly wasn't right away. We started with this really ugly site called masslakes.com that had 10 or 15 lakes on it. And it went nowhere for a little while. And then all of a sudden, as we started adding more lakes and it got more noticed, it got bigger and bigger. And we let the consumers drive the content. And drive the changes to the site. So whatever they tell us they want to see on there is what we keep guiding, and it's becoming kind of the place to go for lakefront property. We're very fortunate.
I would say not kinda. If the film scouts or the location scouts are finding you, then you're doing something extremely right.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
The blogs too. That pushes our SEO position up there. That's why we have to blog. I have to get someone to do it.
I was going to say, when you say we.
Yeah, right. Let me clarify that.
So what do you each, obviously the both of you are going to have a different answer. I have a feeling on this, but what's your favorite part about what you do? Like, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Go ahead, Scott. This is a tough one.
Well, our tagline is changing lives one lake house at a time. And I always say that, it's always like a year later that I get a phone call from somebody we sold the lake house to. And they say, okay, Scott, now we get what the heck you were talking about all this time. Because you can talk about the lifestyle and you talk about having an emotional connection all you want, but until somebody experiences it and really lives on a lake for a year, now they get it. Now they understand walking out on their deck in the morning with their coffee and watching the ducks go by and just all these things that happen on a lake that you just can't get anywhere else. That's my favorite part of it, is that their lives are now permanently changed because of what our business does.
That's a great answer. Now, Chris, follow that up.
Yeah, follow that up.
All right, let's see if I can do that. I had to sit here and think, my gosh, I do. I love so much of it. I'll say this. I don't want to retire. I can't imagine not doing it, because I love coaching my agents and working with our franchisees and encouraging them and being by their side and watching them give it everything they've got and being their cheerleader. I love doing that. I'm involved in some sales with buyers and sellers, but I'm mostly passing them out to my team or somewhere else. I love being with the people and helping them, because I ultimately do know what it's doing. There's nothing like having that family memories at the lake. And for me, it's where my husband and I blended our family at. We married and our kids were, my girls were 8 and 9, and Bruce's son was 7. So 7, 8, and 9. And we're like, let's get this lake house and make that the place where we grow this family. We cannot get rid of that house now. There's no way. That's the fabric of our family that they grew up. And it was fun too, with them growing up, bringing their friends all the time, really getting to know their friends. I'm best friends with all their friends, because when you hang out with them almost like on vacation every week. So I know that's happening for these families that are buying lake homes. And that's just important to me to help that.
So 2 things, great follow-up.
Yeah,
and also you're probably the cool mom. I love it.
Oh, boy.
She's definitely a cool mom.
This is a curiosity question I like to ask of realtors, because I know you see a lot of properties. What are some of the crazy things you've seen? Like what's like one of your top memories of a house, either from the standpoint of this is so cool, I got to do this myself, or what the hell were they thinking?
Ooh, yeah.
The one that sticks out in my head was there was a house that had back-to-back bathrooms, but there wasn't that the toilets were right beside each other with a half wall between them, so you could hold hands with the person like next to you in the toilet. And I don't understand what the purpose of that was. So side by side toilets, yeah, I don't get that at all.
Like his and her sinks. Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
That tops mine. Mine would have to be, I still don't understand this. They had an indoor hot tub in the back of a house in a room with no windows or anything. I'm like, this is a mold infestation, and who wants to go in a hot tub in the back of a house inside of a room? I'm like, I don't even want to go. But it was awful. Or just the college, because here's what they do. They build these homes and they don't ever update them because they're only there on the weekend, or they just don't do it. So when I do go into them and I see the hideous orange shag carpeting and the orange appliances or green, although that's coming back in, so just nothing's ever updated. But probably that indoor hot tub was the one that was the creepiest.
Here's the great thing about lake homes, though. No two are the same. So there's never been a sale that I've said, okay, this is the same as this house. There's no two that are ever the same, especially in New England, but even as you get across the country. So that's great, because if I had to just sell, 3-bedroom, 2-bath colonials in a cul-de-sac all day long, I would shoot myself. So, we get to see these beautiful lake houses all day long, and it's a great way to sell property.
I am getting a new listing on. It'll probably be my favorite lake listing I've ever had. This thing is so unbelievable. It is mind blowing. It's almost on a peninsula. It's on Hoover Reservoir, which is like right in Columbus. And it's rare to have that. But this thing is huge, sprawling openness, not massive big, but just that open windows everywhere on a peninsula. And it is spectacular. That's my dog snoring. Can you hear that? I'm so sorry.
Like, is somebody doing a left cheek sneak there?
I know, right?
No,
I'm
we'll
so embarrassed right now. Stop.
It's all right. I have an ancient cat that was making noise earlier. That's why I had the spray bottle out. She's ridiculously old. She's pretty much dust. No, I'm sorry.
Walk towards the light.
Yeah.
I did one of those cats too. Please, every day. You didn't walk towards the light last night.
She actually has died on me a couple of times, but she comes back to life. It's this weird thing that old cats do, apparently. It's really freaky. I'm starting to celebrate, and then I can't. Anyhow, now that we're getting weird.
Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. I love weird. Weird is good. Boring is absolutely normal. And so, sorry, I know I covered this in the intro. It was 2015 when you guys came together as a partnership?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And how long did it take before things were like really sailing in that partnership?
Well,
a couple of years.
It's a lot of work. I mean, neither one of us had built that kind of business before. So, franchising was new to us. We had to learn all about franchising and how it works, and how you put a company together behind that. So, it was a year and a half or so, I think, before we brought Annie on in Lake of the Ozarks area. And she's been fantastic. But yeah, it just, you can't kid yourself that if it's a new franchise, it's just gonna, everybody's just gonna buy them right away. It just doesn't work that way. So, and I think we took a little different approach. We said, these first 6 or so we bring on are going to be the most important we ever bring on. So let's make sure that that's a foundation that we really have in place that's solid, and that they're all gelling. So we worked with our current ones for a long time to make sure that their systems are working correctly and that they're really succeeding where they are. And that just set us up really well for future franchisees.
No, that's fantastic. I love the idea of sitting around a campfire with them. That's, I mean, it's great to be in a spot where you're building your life the way that you want it to be. That's one of the things when I talk to people. I don't care what you do for a living, as long as you're living the life you actually want to live. That's the thing. The greatest tragedy I see is people that are going to work to pay their bills, and they're paying their bills to maintain a lifestyle that they're not actually happy in. So why are you doing it?
Right.
And I think that's probably, sorry, I don't want to assume that you guys have come to that conclusion for yourself, but I would imagine a number of your clients have come to that conclusion for themselves and said, okay, I'm done with the rat race. Let's change the way that we're doing things.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. I know in the corporate world for 17 years, counting down the hours when I was working and living for Fridays and, all that stuff where I don't even know when Friday or Saturday is anymore because it's just all, it's just all blends together. And I think anybody who owns their own business probably feels that way. But I think for us, it's, it's just, everybody always talks about, work-life balance. And I've never believed in that. I believe in work-life integration because really, my day-to-day is, it's giving my kid a hug when she gets home and then right back to a computer thing. And it's back and forth and back and forth. And you've got to just learn to kind of manage all that. But you hit it, Jeff, when you said, I love what I do. So none of it feels like work at all. And I probably work twice as many hours by choice as I did in the corporate world, but I don't notice it. It's just, it's a strange thing.
Well, especially if you're at the lake doing it. I mean, it's not like you're sitting in a cubicle or on the freeway for 2 hours hating everything. I used to commute for my job, and I literally came home one night and said I need to go punch something, and I became a boxer all of a sudden. I looked at my significant other and said I need to go hit something. I gotta go. But it astounds me that people choose to live their life that way. They get trapped by it, and living outside of that is something that I envy in pretty much everyone that I've ever spoken to that does that. Like there's just a sense of calm about you guys and about anybody who's chosen to get out of that loop of what is it, the cash flow game that Robert Kiyosaki has?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I say what you will about the cost of the game, but all of that stuff, but it does make sense. Like it does teach people like this is the treadmill you're on. It's time to change things, and here's how to do it. Did you guys ever, obviously, Scott, you said you worked in that. Chris, did you work in that environment where you were trading your time for money?
No, not at all. Well, I did for about 6 months and I hated it so much. I'm like, the heck with this. So
fast learner.
Oh my gosh. I just want to be happy. So I love to travel. So I walked into a travel agency and became a travel agent. And then I ended up staying home with my kids because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And then when they got into school, I'm like, okay, what's something else I've always wanted to try? So, and I liked real estate, residential, just doing normal residential. That was fun, but the hours were grueling. I love what I'm doing much better. I mean, with Scott saying, when my husband gets home, he's in corporate America, and I say, although he loves his job, he's in logistics, but when he gets home, I'm like, oh, but you can't wait for retirement because I just sat outside and worked outside in the shade all day, versus in a corporate office environment. So, but it's just fun. It's just a fun place to live, and I love it. I can't imagine not doing it, quite frankly.
I like you guys. Is there anything you guys want to say to kind of wrap this up? I know we're getting to the hour mark here, and it gets pretty exhausting. Actually, it's surprisingly tiring to talk for an hour. Although Jonathan would probably say I do that on a regular basis. Is there anything you guys want to wrap it up with? Tell people about you, something, a message you want to share to kind of summarize everything we've talked about?
Well, we love to talk to people who share this kind of passion. So, if they go to lakefrontfranchise.com, which is the franchise site, if they drop us a note in there, we're happy to talk to anybody who's in a lake market across the country, any agents or brokers who feel like they could be in this niche and make it work. We'd love to be able to talk to them.
And even just buyers and sellers of lake property. I think our website is a one-stop shop for everyone. And, with this whole influx from the West lately, you can go to any state and see what's out there if you're moving out this way. So it's just a nice one-stop shop no matter where you're at. And when you work with us, you're working with people who are living it and loving it. And that just makes all the difference in the world in your buying and selling experience.
Fantastic. Jonathan, you got anything you want to wrap it up with?
Oh, absolute pleasure speaking with both of you. I mean, just your passion and what you're doing comes through. You're doing something you love, and yeah, the lake. I agree completely. The lakefront lifestyle. Once you get into it, there's nothing like it. As I told Scott at the start, before you came on, Chris, but I live in the city. I live in Toronto, but my criteria is I can look out my window and I can see the lake. I've got to be within a 10-minute walking distance of the lake so I can get down there just to be, because we've got, I mean, in the city, but have the swans, have the ducks, have the geese, have all that stuff. And
Yeah.
you can't match that with anything else.
Well, we're happy to sell you a lakefront home anytime you want.
So, Chris, Scott, thank you so much. The website is
you.
lakefrontliving.com or lakefrontfranchise.com. So I was looking that up to make sure I got it correct. Scott Ferguson and Chris Moser, thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We'd love to have you back on and keep in touch and perhaps talk about you guys expanding into the Canadian market. Yeah, well, there's always possibilities. One of my favorite things about what we do here. So that was actually the first thing Jonathan said to me when he read your bios this morning. So
we're not lids. We're good. We'll do it.
All right. Fantastic.
So
thank you guys so much. We really appreciate your time, and thank you for listening all the way through. If you have any questions, want to contact them, again, that's Lakefront Realty. Of course. What was the website again? Lakefrontliving.com. And it's Chris and Scott from Lakefront Living Realty. If you have any, how many states are you guys in now? Sorry.
9 states.
9 states. So 9 they cover and plenty more. And they are the realtors to Hollywood when it comes to lakefront anything. So check them out at lakefrontliving.com. Thank you for checking us out. You can check us out at guidetothegrind.com. There will be more coming there as we are working on a whole bunch of new stuff for you. Thank you so much, Chris and Scott, for your time. Jonathan, thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Have a fantastic day, and we will talk to you soon.